Y otro de los oradores del Congreso del Futuro 2021 que se está desarrollando en el país es Karma Tshiteem, impulsor del índice de Felicidad Natural Bruta aplicado en Bután, concepto que ahora es conocido como el PIB de la felicidad y que mide el bienestar de los pueblos. Carolina Escobar conversó con él sobre esta nueva fórmula. Veamos.
Mr. Karma, thank you so much for being with us today and for your time, especially being 2 a.m. for you. We really thank you for being still awake for us.
No, it's my pleasure.
You know what? We are in amidst a pandemic. So thinking about happiness is kind of hard.
Yeah.
Many today are actually in a survival mode. So let's just start from the basics. And can you define happiness for us?
Well, we look at happiness more from the perspective of contentment.
Mm-hmm.
From a perspective of contentment. So it's not a hedonistic outlook. It's an outlook about, living a life filled with meaning and purpose.
Okay, so you're now known worldwide as the main proposer of the GDH, as some call it, the gross domestic happiness, when everywhere the main measurement of a country is usually the GDP, the gross domestic product.
Yeah.
So can you please elaborate on the index you've created?
Well, we focus on gross national happiness because we believe that's the ultimate end of what people are trying to find with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is a means to that end. And of course, among the means, having sufficient levels of income is extremely important. And so it is for Bhutan also. So since we believe that what people really seek from life is to find happiness, then we believe that the government's role must be, through policies and programs, create conditions to enable people to find that happiness. And so how do we do that? We do that by focusing on areas we consider strongly correlated to people being able to live a fulfilling, meaningful, and hopefully happy lives. For instance, good health, good education, so that they can unleash and fulfill their full potential. Of course, gainful employment, a job that gives them meaning and satisfaction and the livelihood to support themselves and their families. But not only that, we look at good governance, we look at the environment, making sure what we do is sustainable. And we also look at things like the strength of community, the relationship in society. We look at culture because we see that this is the source of our identity, and identity is also strongly correlated to one's sense of well-being. And we also look at things like time use because ultimately that's the most scarce resource. So the idea is we look at all these aspects when government is making policies so that we try to minimize and avoid the unintended consequences.
Now
So
that you...
that's really what we try to do.
Mm-hmm. And so the World Happiness Report has been published for almost 10 years, if I'm not mistaken now. So you've just mentioned mainly all of the categories, the 9 categories among them. And again, mainly business and economics, social issues, education and family, I think you said that too, technology. Do you think in our current pandemic, this categorization should change, or we just should keep the same?
Well, for us, what we're doing works because underpinning this whole idea of gross national happiness is a set of values. Mm-hmm. And that set of values is actually based on it is motivated by this idea that if you have to achieve happiness in society, then when there's something like the pandemic, which is affecting everyone, it's extremely important that we do everything we can to help our people. So if you look at the response of our country to this pandemic, we have also not been spared by this pandemic, but our response has been quite different. We have, for instance, we have helped, we know that one of the people who suffer the most are the ones involved in the service industries, because travel stopped and they were unemployed. And we made sure that we provided them income support, and it still continues now. It's been almost 9 months. Not only that, we have other measures. For instance, we know that a lot of people suffer from debt because they have problems of trying to repay their loans. So the government, even with our limited resources, we not only deferred loans, we actually subsidized the interest payments so that the burden at the end of the pandemic, the economic burden will be less for the people. But not only that, for instance, we have put quite stringent measures on our people to save them from this pandemic. For instance, quarantines. The government pays for quarantines. When you are in quarantine, the government pays for it. And like that, we have done many things. And in fact, that's one of the things I spoke about in the Congress of Futuro also. The response of Bhutan to this pandemic.
Well, and you know what, now that you're mentioning quarantine, we are this week actually waiting for reports on the health ministry about which communities are going back to quarantine, which of them are getting out of it. But then you've had the opportunity to visit our country, 2012, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I would like to know, what do you remember of Chile back then? And what have you been able to see again in our reality, even if it's virtually? Do you think that it's always possible to be happy independently from the day-to-day struggles that we're going through today?
Well, day-to-day struggle, I think an outlook that, for instance, we have with our gross national happiness, that we look out for people during difficult times like this. It actually, what it does is it enhances our resilience. It also boosts our psychological well-being, because we know in this difficult time, we are not alone. And I think that kind of outlook is important at a time like this. So you may not be happy in terms of smiling from morning to evening, but because you know that there are people looking out for each other, then it strengthens your resolve to come out from this stronger. And we believe that, pursuing something like happiness is not always about putting smiles on everyone's face, but it's about making sure we look out for each other. And that's where I feel whatever we have done with this idea of gross national happiness is quite different from most other countries' responses.
And you know what, actually, just taking what you just said, some analysts affirm that this pandemic has provoked us to reshuffle our priorities. Do you concur?
Yes. I think, in Bhutan, our outlook has led to much more balance in our development. But we don't see that happening worldwide, which is why we face the problems we do on the environment side, the social fabric breaking down. Because we don't pay attention to things like time, we design cities in such a manner that people spend 2 to 3 hours traveling to work every day. And that's a very poor quality use of your time, which is nothing but your life. So we hope that with this pandemic, when people come out, they'll come out with a clearer sense of what really matters. And hopefully what we do here in Bhutan will also inspire them.
Well, you know what, we do interview authorities on a daily basis in Canal 24 Horas. And each of them usually will tell us, well, you know what, we're trying to do our best, but there are several things we need to improve in Chile. So what would you put your focus on post-pandemic? So what are the changes do you foresee in the public policies in a country that has many focuses to put their attention on?
Well, in my own country, what is making the biggest difference during this difficult time is the leadership. And it's the leadership of our king, actually. We are a monarchy, as you know.
Yeah.
And the king is taking the pandemic as as almost an inflection point to start addressing those things which will take our country and come out of this pandemic even stronger. So during our National Day, which just took place in 17 December, His Majesty actually announced that we should undertake two major reforms, one on the education front and one on the public service delivery front, with a view to chart a new way forward, a better way forward, learning from what this pandemic is doing to us. And I hope that kind of thing will happen in every country.
Well, let's hope so. And finally, two important pillars in the GDH are communication and technology, right? One of the categories. And as one of the speakers, as you just said, in the Congreso del Futuro topics around diminishing uncertainties, what is the role that you think social media is having in either amplifying sanitary measurements, for example?
Well, I think social media has become very powerful in terms of not only amplifying and spreading the message, and it's also being used here very powerful by the government, because as you can imagine, in this pandemic, social distancing has become important. People have to, as much as possible, seclude themselves. But this technology, the social media, is allowing them to be connected while they are on their own. And in Bhutan, not only that, the government has used it very cleverly to keep people informed, not only what they should do, but why they should do what they do, so that we don't have the problems of infodemic, all sorts of miscommunication and poor, there's all sorts of things on social media, and we have to make sure we use it in a fashion where people get the right messages, the right media, and so that it helps them come out of this even stronger and better.
Wonderful. Mr. Karma, thank you so much for your time, and we hope you get some rest tonight at least. Again, thank you for being with us.
No, thank you, and I wish all of you all the very best. I hope you all will also come out of this stronger, better, and brighter.
That's what we hope to. Thank you very much. Good evening for you. Bye-bye.
Bye.